Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with John Golden, who is President and CEO of Huthwaite. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Gerhard. Glad to be here.
What I'd like to know is sales is changing constantly. And what has changed now is the nature of the engagement between salesperson and customer. Can you explain the dynamics involved in that change?
Yeah, I think it's actually started to change fundamentally for two different reasons. I mean, number one, we're obviously coming off the back of an extremely deep recession. And because of that, the whole buying process has become much more complex because people haven't had a lot of discretionary budget to spend if they've actually had any money at all. And they have much higher expectations of what they want on the pre-sales end in order to make those decisions. And you've had procurement get involved. So it's a much more complex process with a lot more people involved in it. So that's one dynamic. Then on the other side, you've had this whole explosion of social media and the way people consume and get information. And if you think about it, it's that saying, you know, not every consumer is a business person, but every business person is a consumer. So our consumer buying habits have started to bleed over into the business-to-business relationship. And by that, I mean, when you go to buy something as a consumer, you do your research online, you look at third-party review sites, you talk to your friends through Facebook, have you tried this camera, is it any good? That's starting to happen in a business setting where, you know, rather than you as a salesperson, rather than I use you as a conduit for information, I actually go elsewhere and get a lot of information about you, about your products or services. I get it from my professional networks, I get it on review sites, etc. So as a salesperson, you now have to look at a couple of fundamentals. Number one, what value do I bring to that process? And second off, how do I even get involved in that process? Because you as a buyer, if you're off getting all this information and engaging in these conversations that don't include me, how do I actually get myself inserted into that process? So it's a very different and a very challenging environment.
So how do you create a roadmap that reflects the new order?
So what you need to do as a salesperson is, number one, you need to go and hang out where your customer is hanging out. So what are the sites that they visit? What are the groups, you know, what are the LinkedIn groups that they're industry groups that they're a part of? You know, where do they get their information? Where do they have their discussions? And you need to get yourself inserted in there and start to actually provide some value without looking for something in return initially. So whether that means getting involved in a discussion, offering advice, offering input.
Join the conversation.
Absolutely, right. Join the conversation.
But conversely, salespeople can also learn more about their customers. Do you teach people how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more than ever, the role of the salesperson, you need to become a very good researcher. So you need to understand what's happening in your customer's business segment. You need to understand what's happening with their business on a macro and micro level. So you need to be set up on Google Alerts. You need to, you know, be on OneSource or one of those other sites like Jigsaw. You really need to know what's happening. You need to bring all this information together, and you need to make sure that when you do make contact with your customer, that it's the most relevant contact you can make, because you understand what's happening in their industry, you understand what's happening to their business, you understand what their strategies are, and you understand from the conversations we were talking about that they're having on their professional networks, what are the things that they really care about.
So there's a shift from sort of the relationship-focused salesperson to becoming a knowledge worker and becoming a master of technology.
Yeah, I think all of those things, absolutely. I mean, you need to use all of the information. I mean, there's a ton of information, so you need to be good at filtering it and taking out the bits that are relevant. And then you need to be able to have even more focused conversations than ever with the customer. Those few moments I get to communicate directly with you, I better know how to do that in a value-creating way. So I think selling skills are paramount now.
Right, and also being able to compress it in a shorter time frame, because the customer has less time for you. Well, thank you, John. We are going to continue our conversation with John Golden tomorrow, where we talk about sales strategies.